Janae, Linda, and we've got over 300 people registered for this thing, so it'll be.
Oh my goodness.
Congratulations, Greg.
It's
Wow.
amazing.
That's
So,
amazing.
That
so
is,
Good.
wow.
we're
Listen to
very
you,
excited.
Mr. High
Yes.
Tech.
How was it marketed, Greg?
Well, we advertised to a bunch of listservs that we're connected to. We did a promotional webinar about a year ago to generate ideas, to generate submissions. Um, Social media, got the word out. And it's just one of those topics that
It is.
Yeah,
it obviously just
kind of. Yeah.
brings them coming. But Aubrey Wang, who our guest editor, it was her idea. She brought this idea to the Ed board, and we decided
Fantastic.
to go with it. And then so a year later, a little more than a year later, here we are. So
Mm,
really, really an amazing success story. So
yeah.
we're very excited.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
So we will start at 2 sharp because we've got a whole lot to do in 50 minutes.
Hey, Greg, can I ask
That's
a
okay.
question while we're sitting here? I've been doing some all-day AI workshops on course design.
Yes.
And are you guys still doing the workshops before the Lily like you used to? I went online and it looked like the workshops are now all short. And I know in the past you guys have had some all-day workshops.
We just do 3-hour half days now.
Okay.
Yeah, we adjusted the schedule somewhat, and now all the workshops are 3 hours, and they're on Thursday morning.
Okay.
And then we start our regular 45-minute sessions after lunch.
Okay.
Yeah. So 3 hours. Yeah, no more 6-hour workshops.
I loved those. I went to some real good ones that you guys have had over the years.
Yeah, there just wasn't time for everything, and
I know.
people want shorter and
Never
shorter
is.
conferences, and
There
they
you
want to
go.
be able to leave town, on a reasonable time, catch a flight, so it's not so late. So we've adjusted things, but we were happy with what happened, the way it went last year. So
Cool.
I think we'll stick with it for a while. Yes.
Hi, Nora.
All right.
Good. John's here too.
Greg, I apologize. I should have had music playing. That's how we introduce my sessions usually. And so sorry.
Oh, that's okay. No
We could
worries.
just hum.
But you could have been on with your trumpet and you didn't.
Yeah, I didn't bring it, but that's a thought. I could fanfare us in or something. Yeah. All right. So I think I'm going to give it about half a minute more, and then we're going to get started. I know a lot of people will be rolling in. Can everybody see the PowerPoint?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, welcome everybody. It is 2 p.m. sharp Eastern Daylight, and I want to welcome you all to our special Zoom event on reimagining learning outcomes through AI-enhanced pedagogy, a conversation with the guest editors and authors. I'm Greg Wenzel, editor-in-chief of the Journal on Excellence in College Teaching, and it is amazing to see so many people interested in this discussion. We had over 360 people registered for this session. Which really speaks to the timeliness and importance of this topic. So thank you all for being here. We're going to be recording this session, and we'll be uploading it to the YouTube channel and sending the link out to everyone afterwards. So you'll have it. And also we've got the captions rolling, I see, so we're in good shape there. I want to welcome our special guests for the webinar, the issue's guest editors, Aubrey Wang of St. Joseph's University and Lou Ludwig of Denison University. Our 3 author presenters, Chad Hershock of Carnegie Mellon University, Susan Iverson, Manhattanville University, and Sherry Stover, Wright State University, as well as any of the other authors of the Issues 14 articles that are joining us today. Excuse me, and any of the peer reviewers for the issue are also here. I also want to recognize Milt Cox, who was founder of the journal back in 1990, who I believe is joining us, and Todd Zakrajsek, who's a member of the journal editorial board. Many of you know Todd. Ellen Yuzerski, director of Miami University Center for Teaching Excellence, which publishes the journal here at Miami University. And Raid Ghazi, Miami CTE support specialist, who's the journal website and circulation manager and who's providing tech support. And all the other names I've worked with over many years that I recognize, and it's just a pleasure to finally be able to connect. Thank you for all for coming. So here's the roadmap for today. We'll have remarks from our guest editors, and then we'll have 10-minute presentations of each of the three guest article authors, and then we'll have some time for general discussion at the end. All right, so with that, I want to turn it over to Aubrey and Lou for your remarks. Take it away.
Thank you so much, Greg. Hello, everyone. Thank you for making time to join us. I am Aubrey Wang, a professor of educational leadership and director of Office of Teaching and Learning at St. Joseph's University. I've had the pleasure of collaborating with both Lou and Greg on this special issue. Lou, would you mind just saying hi quickly?
All right, I turn my chair a little bit, if that's okay.
Yeah, I know.
There we go. Hello, everybody.
Hey. Yeah, so Lou and I are we are very different in various ways. So Lou is a professor of mathematics. I am in educational leadership. So our training was very different. We also brought very different skills to this collaboration. Lou really brought expert knowledge and skills in prop design and Gen AI capabilities, whereas I brought expert knowledge on scholarship on teaching and learning. However, when we connected on this special issue, both of us are passionate about our fundamental mission as educators in higher education. So throughout this collaboration, we share our different perspectives, but we also thought, well, it's wonderful that we have different perspectives. We should use these perspectives to collaborate on this special issue so that together we can try to address this new wicked problem facing our community, which is how to generate needed research evidence on AI-enhanced pedagogy while knowing that the technology that these studies are based on is evolving faster than a typical research cycle can accommodate. What we realized as guest editors and through conversations also with Greg is that it is important as journal editors and as part of the research community that we not only generate research evidence, but it is really critical that we engage the field, all of you on this call, in a reflective dialogue so that we can continuously learn from and reflect upon the current research evidence on what it means for us, because each of us are playing different roles in our context and we are making decisions, we are impacting different audiences. So we have to really engage in this individual collective interrogation to understand how we can best use the knowledge. So thank you so much for joining us today. Greg, I'm just going to turn it over to the speakers for today.
Okay, thank you, Aubrey. So now we're going to get into our three featured articles for discussion. Our three authors have graciously agreed to talk about their work. Excuse me. And the experience over this past, what's been almost a year-long odyssey. They'll each have 10 minutes. Then we'll have time at the end of the session for a general discussion. And I'm going to give each presenter a heads up when you have 1 minute remaining to make sure everyone gets equal time as a courtesy to you. So you'll see a red circle appear on the screen to let you know you have 1 minute to wrap things up. Our first presenter is Chad Hershock. who's part of the team at Carnegie Mellon. And I should mention that for each of these author articles, the category at the bottom refers to the journal's 4 categories of scholarship that authors can submit in, which are research, integration, innovation, and application. And those are described on the submissions page. As you can see, Chad's article is in the research category. So now, Chad, take it away. Do you need me to stop sharing? Chad, are you here?
I'm here.
All right.
Hopefully folks are seeing my slides.
I might have to stop sharing first. There we go.
All right.
Yes.
Well, hello, friends from Carnegie Mellon University in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I'm thrilled on behalf of my team of colleagues to be talking about this scholarship, so thank you for the invitation. To contextualize the work, this scholarship was part of a larger campus-wide initiative funded by our provost and led by the Eberly Center for Teaching Excellence, our Center for Teaching and Learning on campus, of which I'm lucky to be the executive director. And the way we approached this disruption of generative AI to the higher ed landscape, it's very easy to make an argument about how it might be a challenge or might be an opportunity for learning. We view it as an open empirical question. And our special sauce is that we like to study things and make evidence-based, data-informed decisions. And so that's what we set about to do. To what extent does students' use of Gen AI impact their learning, and in what contexts, and is it helpful or is it not? And could we give some practical advice to instructors about that? So that inspired our study. I'm not going to talk about the study in detail today. I'm sorry if that disappoints some folks, but hopefully you'll read the paper, and I'm happy to talk to anybody afterwards. Just in case you haven't read the paper yet, I'll give a 1-slide overview, but then I want to talk about some bigger picture issues that I think our paper contributes to. So we did a large quasi-experimental classroom research study with over 400 students. We did this study across 28 first-year writing courses at Carnegie Mellon, taught by 16 different instructors. We primarily studied, someone needs to mute. Sorry about that. We primarily studied the evidence-based practice of peer feedback, which has been extensively researched. And it's well known that when students both practice giving and receiving feedback, it positively impacts their development as writers. And so in our study, we compared traditional peer review practices during the revision stage of a writing assignment to 3 different versions of interacting with generative AI that had different components of giving and or receiving feedback. Most of the time, comparing our conditions, we found null results, meaning that there was no difference between the traditional practice and the AI-mediated practice. So AI did no harm, in other words. For one of our conditions, the interaction with AI leveraged one of the affordances of AI, meaning that students could get feedback anywhere, anytime, as much as they wanted. And this condition created an extra opportunity for learning and revision that would not have occurred otherwise. And so in this particular condition, student learning with respect to writing, making an argument and supporting it with evidence specifically, increased more than any of the other, increased more than the traditional peer review treatment. The big caveat with this research is that our research team, we used Copilot, which is the university-sponsored supported system, and we invested a non-trivial amount of time upfront with prompt engineering and quality assurance in terms of what the students were getting in feedback. So it wasn't like we were just pointing students to an off-the-shelf tool and say, go. So that's an important disclaimer when you read our study. Okay, but what I want to talk about very briefly is Craig inspired us with this question of how does your article contribute to the bigger conversation about AI and education? And I think ours does in at least 3 ways related to how we study and measure Gen AI's impacts. So I want to talk about contextualizing how students are using it in studies, what studies actually need to include to make a causal inference about the impact of Gen AI, and the challenge in education research of creating replicated or generalizable findings. So I'll mention each of those briefly. The first is contextualizing how students use Gen AI. Our paper presented a framework with two very broad categories. The first we refer to as production assistant. Here is where the generative AI is doing the key thinking and the creating of a deliverable. That's illustrated here with the green box, the student prompting the Gen AI in the yellow box to create a deliverable, which could be a paper, it could be computer code, it could be an animation, it could be whatever. But the dotted line indicates that the student's intellectual relationship with the deliverable in this use case is indirect at best. The other category we propose is thought partner. This is where Gen AI provides guidance and info, but the student has to do the key thinking and the works. So you can see in the diagram here that the position of the yellow and the green boxes has switched. And the Gen AI is providing the role of a coach during the process. And so interestingly, you could replace Gen AI in the yellow box with instructor or excellent TA. And that's often the goal is teaching, is for us to coach the student without doing the work for them. The Gator initiative focuses on the thought partner use case exclusively. The reason why I bring this up as an important distinction is that I see lots of studies of both kinds emerging in the literature, and sooner or later, people are going to start doing meta-analyses, and I think it's going to be really important that they differentiate between the two, because mechanistically, they are very different in terms of how learning may or may not be happening. Next, I want to talk about designing SOTL to measure AI's impacts. And again, I think our paper contributes here. When I read a paper in the literature, I apply a pretty simple heuristic. The first question I ask is, how are the impacts measured? There are lots of papers that have learning in the title or the abstract, but you really have to look at how are they measuring that. If you're talking about measuring student knowledge or a student's skill, great, you're well aligned. If you're talking about measuring student perceptions or experiences by surveys or focus groups, that's also great. I really want to know what's going on there, but you really can't say anything about learning because perceptions and experiences are not the same thing and they behave in different ways. So if you want to talk about learning, you really have to focus on analyzing artifacts of student work, whether that's exams, papers, projects, homework problems, or a subset thereof. And when you do that, we have to pay attention. Are we talking about performance or learning? The graph on the left shows average paper score for a data set or a course. And this one single measurement is a measurement of performance. And often in SOTL, that's all we have, and it's used as a surrogate for learning. But the problem is the implicit assumption is that all students started out the same and that they all started out at 0. And we know that's probably not true in most cases. So a more ideal situation is to measure multiple times. For example, in the graph on the right, before and after an intervention. It's not shown here, but ideally there'd be a third measurement after a delay where we look for transfer to a new situation of what students learned. Okay, and then finally, if you're going to say what are the impacts of Gen AI, you absolutely positively have to have a comparison group. If you just have before and after in a single intervention, that's a what happens study, but not a what causes study. So here in our study, our control with a pre and a post measurement, we had multiple drafts of student work we could look at. Our control was the traditional peer review. And then we had a pre and post wrapped around 3 different treatments that were different interactions with generative AI. And as is illustrated in the graph, quantitatively, you can figure out exactly what the impact is of the intervention relative to the control, and this hypothetical graph shows a positive impact of the treatment on learning. Finally, I want to mention about the struggle of replicating or generalizing SOTL findings. SOTL is an amazing thing for letting many flowers bloom. People can leverage their SOTL toolkits to implement innovations in courses and test them and make a causal inference. And then the question is always, well, if that SOTL study was done in the humanities, does it apply to the engineering? or other disciplines? If that focused on writing, does it apply to another kind of assessment? And so our approach to that was to leverage a form of megasodal, which has been written about mostly about cross-institutional projects. This is all at one institution. And again, we had 400 students across 28 courses. And this allowed us to do a complicated experiment that was replicated with 4 different conditions and make a strong causal inference. The other thing I want to emphasize in closing here, and I hope that this approach described in the paper inspires others to do similar work. The last point I want to make, to get a little bit political, is that there was a negative article in the Chronicle recently with respect to views of centers for teaching and learning. And the other thing I think this work shows is how a center for teaching and learning can be a catalyst and a nexus for extremely rigorous research in collaboration with academic units that provides very practical information for evidence-based teaching. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Chad. That was terrific. Wonderful job of addressing not only what you did in the paper, but its implications and addressing the questions. So thank you so much. Next up, we have Susan Iverson. And let me go back to sharing my screen. So here is Susan's intro slide, and I'm going to let Susan take it away.
All right, great. Well, thank you to Greg and to the special issue editors for the opportunity to talk about this piece in particular. I know that one of my co-authors, John Shakitka, is here, and possibly Callie Kemp. I'm going to give a overview of the work, and then at the end, under the implications, raise some points for broader consideration. Next slide. So, as the special issue well establishes, the accelerated growth of AI is certainly undeniable. And a question that many of us have is how faculty, either individually or collectively, can think about and develop strategies for infusing AI into their teaching. So in this piece, the 3 authors offer 3 particular examples, but next slide. It's grounded in particular in the use of in a faculty learning community. And we're probably familiar with faculty learning communities. Learning communities broadly are a small group of individuals that come together to focus collaboratively on a particular topic. And Milton Cox in particular differentiated the learning communities for faculty that they provide support and opportunities, reflection, and research has shown that they also contribute to pedagogical innovation, and for challenging topics can dissipate some resistances that may arise in incorporating that pedagogically. Next slide. So Manhattanville University convenes faculty learning communities on a variety of topics. And in fall of 2024, and then again this past fall in 2025, invitations went out from the Center for Teaching, Learning, and Scholarship for individuals to convene around AI. This first group that formed in the fall of 2024 had sort of 2 facets to it. One was doing some deep readings together around AI and infused pedagogy, with some particular emphasis on critical AI literacy. How do we ask questions and sort of interrogate what could be unintended consequences out of its use and not just take it for granted? Is the slideshow going to go back? But what came together in this group was about 15 faculty who were across the three schools and represented different disciplines from arts and sciences, education, and nursing health sciences. Next slide. So the three projects that are described in this article, I will briefly give you an overview of each of those. Next slide. The first one, this is John Shakitka's course contribution, is he explored the use of ChatGPT in a graduate social studies methods course. And in particular for their planning of lessons, students were already grounded and steeped in sort of the understanding of lesson planning, but had the opportunity to experiment with using ChatGPT to see how does it contribute in any additional ways. A key takeaway was that it did kind of help their thinking and getting ideas started and moving along, but that the overall quality of the particular lessons was not particularly striking, and that there are some free resources out there that are more contextually appropriate. What did emerge, though, is that it can be a helpful tool in sequencing lessons, drafting communications, and in particular, language translations for assignments. Noted in the article is an additional optional assignment that was available, but students didn't take advantage of it, so we weren't really able to comment on that. Next slide. Callie Kemp incorporated the use of Gen AI in her graduate course on early childhood inclusive strategies, which in particular is for educators that are going to be working with young children with disabilities. And Gray is an author that has developed this tool of social stories that get written for an individual based on their unique needs and contexts. And so typically they are individually authored with no supports. And so she enabled the students in the course to do a comparison of their own understanding of social stories and how to create those, and then learning about Gen AI. Now, a piece to note in these instructional strategies is we know that educators and others are just picking up these tools to use them. So the opportunity instructionally to say, let's ensure we understand what we're doing and then how a tool may or may not help in the delivery of that, versus just having them experiment and not see sort of the pros or cons or advantages. In their writing use of Gen AI, they had to have sort of screenshots of their prompts and the output. They also acknowledged its benefit as a brainstorming tool, but that the output was somewhat limited because these social stories have to have a uniqueness to needs and context, and did not find that AI was beneficial for that. Next slide. Next slide, please. Thank you. In my own course, I teach in a doctoral program in educational leadership and an advanced qualitative research class. And so I was exploring relative to ethics and privacy and decisions, how would students think about, because the infusion of AI is pervasive right now. And so this focused on their development of their IRB application. And I provided particular prompts, questions, and considerations relative to as you might have AI infused. And our own Human Subjects Review Board is requiring students to delineate and make transparent where AI is showing up. Next slide. It is notable that novice researchers are already feeling a little apprehensive about research methods generally. And so when you may not have a command of research design or Gen AI, it can raise even further worry or apprehension. What it was valuable at doing was raising additional questions around what is acceptable use, matters related to confidentiality and privacy, and awareness of why you wouldn't just like upload transcripts or, not be mindful of some of those parameters. And anecdotally, I am finding that more doctoral students, with the increased infusion of AI into all of their tools, aren't sure that it's really providing a whole lot of benefits for them. So next slide, which I think is the final one. So things for us to think about, because there's two levels that we view in this article. One is the specific projects, but the other is just the role of a faculty learning community. Generally, we know its value for idea generation, sandboxing ideas. Mills et al. Refers to sort of when there is a particular shock to something that is going to be taken on, such as AI, that the use of a faculty learning community can be really valuable in cultivating innovation and brainstorming and some co-accountability. And also there may be ways that there can be institutional incentives attached with this. The readings of Bally and some other pieces on critical AI literacy ensures a reflexivity that we call forth as essential to being a reflective pedagogically about not just taking for granted that it's here, everybody needs to use it, it's a tool or it's a skill, but how do we really think about some of the unintended consequences that may arrive? At the end of the day, it has to be meaningful, relevant, centered on content and context, and mindful of privacy and confidentiality issues and an understanding of prompt writing. So thank you. Last slide. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Susan. And all right, now we'll move on to our sorry, there's your thank you. Missed that one. The three authors. Now our third and final presenter today is Sherry Stover, presenting for her team. Sherry, are we going with the slides that you sent?
Sure, that'd be fine.
Okay.
Do I advance them or do you advance them?
If I made you, I think I made you a co-host, so you should be able to do it yourself.
I am not seeing, no, I'm not seeing the
You
advance.
see a share option? No.
If I hit share and then I accept.
If not, I can do it.
Oh, I can actually do it.
Okay.
Yeah, and then I will share. Perfect. That will be
Okay,
easy.
great.
Oh, okay. Hold on. Give me a second. Okay, are you guys seeing the slide now?
Yeah, but do you want to go to slideshow view? At the bottom there. The little icon down at the bottom. Or
up at the top, just hit for beginning on the left. Yeah.
Yeah, from beginning.
From beginning.
Yeah.
Bear with me, because I have three screens. That's what's happening. Let me try this one more time. Share. Are you seeing it now, presenters and authors?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So yes, I am presenting on behalf of our team. Dr. Carol Petitu is a professor in Sahi here at Wright State, and Christopher Hogan, who is the director of community standards. So they apologize they could not be here. But the purpose of our study was to take a look at AI, see what's happening as far as academic integrity. Are we having some cases that are being reported at Wright State University, and then seeing what we thought students could do to stave off the academic, academic accusations for AI misconduct. So the methods we used, we had 2 research questions. What does the data show about the impact of AI on the number of misconduct cases at Wright State over the last 5 years? And are there differences in populations of students reported for AI? So the methodology, where we had 612 records of academic misconduct that we used, most of them were undergraduate, and we found that the top 4 disciplines that were reported were computer science was by far the highest, then engineering, math, and English. So when you take a look at AI, back to 2020, and it started showing up with academic misconduct accusations in the end of 2023. And then by 2024, just in a few months, went from almost not being reported to being our #1 academic misconduct. And any ideas about why it increased in that short time? Well, you guys can probably guess. That's when ChatGPT came on the marketplace. And if you guys remember, ChatGPT is not one of those applications that came on and grew a little bit. It literally jumped onto the marketplace and was just the #1 application in basically no time. And the computer science department was by far the most, but we don't think that computer science students are cheating more than the other ones. There's a lot of reasons for this. Computer science students are going to be more computerate, so they jumped on the bandwagon a little bit quicker. The faculty were seeing AI use before a lot of the other disciplines faculty were, and so they were being more aggressive looking for it. And what's interesting about this is our computer science was very supportive in faculty looking for it, and now they've actually gone the opposite direction, where they're almost adopting AI and trying to come up with ways to incorporate it more effectively. So just to show how quickly this all changes. So we found out that student use of AI is just surging, with 86% of students reporting, and this was a year ago research, so I'm guessing it's probably up in the 90s, that even if a student, if an instructor banned said, I don't want you to use it, they would say, sorry, not sorry, gonna use it anyway. So here we have students on the left saying, I'm gonna use it, I don't care if you tell me not to use it. And then faculty perceptions. I sit in meetings and oftentimes I hear faculty say things like, oh, the quality of their papers is not as good when they use the AI. I tell my students not to use AI, and then they don't. And then we know from research that that's just not true, that the quality is quite good. It's almost to the point where it's very difficult to acknowledge. So we need to get to the point where, instead of trying to catch students at the end of the process, we need to address it up front. Our idea when we took a look at this research is that we wanted to flip the script and get students involved in this idea or discussion of AI before they do their assignments, to prove provenance, to prove the lineage of their documents and what they own and what they don't own. So we wanted to flip it. So the growth of AI, has caused us to say, instead of either stop, and we didn't want to judge whether it was good or bad. It's just that students, whatever they do, whether they use it or don't use it, because this is all going to be changing in the future, that they need to be proving provenance of their document. And we felt like that was a skill that was not only going to get students thinking about this concept or proving where their intellectual property came from, not only a good skill in higher ed today, but when they get a job in the future in the corporate world or wherever they are, they're going to have to prove provenance of their own intellectual property when they get a job. So we thought this is a skill that's important for students to learn today and tomorrow for their workplace. So the idea is flipping the switch. Instead of having the traditional route, is I sit in meetings where faculty are asking, how do I catch students? How do I catch students when they're done? So student writes paper, they upload it to the learning management system, and many of us have learning management systems that are integrated with AI detector, or the instructor reads it and then feels like, they can catch it afterwards. And what we want to do is redesign this so that as students write their assignments, they're proving provenance. They're providing evidence of where the intellectual property came from up front, and then the papers are uploaded to the learning management system. So we're flipping the switch. So, we think we know what provenance is, but really maybe not so much in this instance. But if we think about it traditionally, provenance was used for historic property, art, books, to document the chain of custody, authorship, authenticity, and establish value. And honestly, where I came up with this idea, we were doing this study, we were thinking about this idea of what do we want to do? And I was in Boston and I was visiting my daughter. And if you guys have ever been to the Boston MFA, they're very proud of their artwork there, that they don't have murky artwork where it could possibly have been taken from the Nazis and maybe had a murky trail. And many art museums are having that challenge where a lot of their artwork is considered dirty. The MFA is very proud where they can prove provenance of where their artwork came from. And they're so proud about it that when you go around the museum, they have it listed very proudly about here's the provenance that was owned by this person and that person. And we can prove that our artwork is not murky, that we're transparent about it. It's very respected. And I said to myself, this is what we need students to do. Students to prove their intellectual property is not murky, that it's not questionable, that they can prove where it came from, and they need to prove their own provenance. So I came up with, I found Cole's suggestion for proving provenance. And I did get this from the art world, but I applied it to the academic world, where step 1, they need to gather historic documentation. Step 2, trace ownership. Step 3, consult experts. And step 4, signature of certifying authority. And how I applied this is in step 1, gathering historical documentation. We know that AI is getting to the point where it is so reliable in its writing that this research shows it's difficult to pick AI written over regular written. So one of the things it's still not quite great at today is that the accuracy of the citations is still not great. There's a lot of hallucination that's still going on. So we need to make sure that students are providing accurate resources, citations, and references. And if they're using Chat AI or Chat GPT information, they need to cite it. So we need to teach them how to do it, because the research shows students don't know how to do these things. Tracing ownership is step 2. So instead of waiting to the last minute for students to do it, instructors need to scaffold these assignments where they have to do a little bit along the way so students don't freak out and then go into, a Chat GPT tool and say, write me this paper. If they had to do it a little bit along the way, they're more inclined to keep up. The other thing is that in Ohio, which I'm from Ohio, that 95% of our high schools use Google technologies, and I'm guessing that's true around the country. That means students in higher ed are using Google to write their papers, Google Docs, then they're saving it as a Word document, and then they're uploading it to our learning management system, whether that's Canvas, Blackboard, D2L. When that happens, it strips out all the metadata, all the versioning, anything the students would have to prove provenance of their assignment. So an instructor could take a look at that document and see there's no versioning, there's no proof that you did it. So what you need to do is when students upload their individual files, you need to have a link to their online, Word or whatever they're using so they can prove provenance of version 1, version 2. Step 3 is consult an expert. So maybe early in the term, have students do a writing sample so that the instructor can keep it and compare it. And we do recommend using AI detectors. And a lot of people are not fond of AI detectors, but it's one form of evidence that the instructor could do. And then signifying a certifying authority means that instructors need to be doing things like AI tutorials, doing an honor code. Every time a student turns in an assignment with me, they have to acknowledge which AI tools they did and then follow in the instructor. So in conclusion, AI is not an all or nothing, and you can just have them prove provenance. You can have them use different forms about all or nothing, or maybe just Grammarly, and use the steps to prove it. And that's it. That's for me. Thanks. And I need to stop sharing, right?
I think you're good, Jerry.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right.
All set. Thank you very much. And we can all add provenance to our vocabularies when talking about AI. Let me get back to my slides here. Okay, so at this point, I think we've heard a sampling of the range and variety of papers that are in this issue with 14 articles, and you've got a sense of the kind of variety in approaches, research approaches, and topics and implications. So at this time, I wanted to give everyone a chance to think about some of these questions, some kind of larger questions that emerge. And I thought we would give the first crack to any of the other authors who are present today who haven't been presenting, who might want to offer their insights, but we can certainly open it up to everyone too, and we can use the chat for this for folks to enter ideas too. So first question is, where do you believe are the current gaps in research regarding AI-enhanced pedagogy? And as we know, we've just scratched the surface, so shouldn't be a tough one. And then what suggestions do you have for people who are interested in conducting research on AI-enhanced pedagogy? Would anyone like to tackle either of those questions? Feel free to speak up. Just say your name and go for it.
I can speak to it. My name is Nora Broge. I co-authored a piece with Susan Iverson, who's also here. So she was an author on 2 pieces in the special issue. The piece that I worked on with Susan and our colleague Shelley Wepner was a case study on doctoral students' beliefs and practices about generative AI that we conducted. I think for me, and I also should just say I'm a quantitative methodologist, and I teach the intro and advanced quantitative methodology courses in our doctoral program at Manhattanville University. I think one of the things that I believe is missing and is a gap, but is also a gap and an issue with methodology generally, is how do you study something that is constantly evolving at such an exponentially quick rate? And which therefore means that there might be a new gap every day. I think one way to approach this, though, could be doing kind of small N case, and I'm not a small N case study person, but doing small N case study looking at the kind of paper trail, so to speak, on all of this, looking at the kind of prompt history that students are using as they go into these generative AI platforms. How are they tweaking what they're asking for? Following them through idea generation, following them through asking for kind of formatting help. I think that the kind of small nuances of the ways in which they may change the practice of it could really shed some light on what we as faculty and educators need to consider when developing our syllabuses and when working with our students. Because I think that granular level might be needed here, because I truly believe that we could feel like we're filling the gaps, and then the next day, a hole opens up.
Thanks, Lauren. Thanks for your article also. Anyone else have thoughts on either of these questions? There may be some new authors here who are new to Sodal scholarship who would be interested in the experiences of authors who have published in terms of how to get started with conducting research, in particular on AI-enhanced pedagogy. Would anyone care to offer a thought on that?
Yeah, Greg, I think we are getting chats posting.
Oh,
So
I see.
Madhu is having a gap. Would you like me to read it?
Sure.
Madhu shared that the biggest gap, in my opinion, is not being able to really determine realistically student AI use. There are several free modules out there. Sorry, her thing just got bumped out. Students could switch between various models during their use. Given the differences between the models, how do you control for that? And Susan shared that she doesn't believe that students always know if and when they're using AI-infused tools. Are you seeing additional chats right now?
I'm
Greg?
looking. I'm looking.
There is another question from Bennett.
Bennett Goldberg. Yes, Bennett. Bennett asked, oh, go
Sure.
ahead, Bennett. Go ahead.
Yeah,
You
no,
asked
I'm
your
just
question.
curious about the about consent process and IRB. I mean, we're doing an AI enhanced pedagogy project, and it's all built on top of our own Azure system, and so behind firewalls. So we'll be able to collect all the back end data, and we're trying to go through an IRB consent process. And I was curious for the research projects described here, if they could have insights into that and how many students consented or didn't, or how much of the back end data of AI use were they able to extract?
Our project had an IRB protocol specifically written for it. We had to go to each classroom. Went to each classroom and consented, read a paragraph that was also in their syllabus and took questions. But the way our protocol worked is that students were in the study until they opted out, and they could opt out at any time during the semester or afterwards. And all that meant was we couldn't use their data as part of our analysis. We were doing research that leveraged the required work that instructors were assigning. So opting out of the study was not equivalent to saying, I'm opting out of doing the work that's required for this class. It was just about whether or not we get to use your data, and your data has to be removed before we analyze it. So every semester, there's a handful of students, 6, 12, 18, who are just exercising their new independent adult muscles to exercise their freedoms. And no, you can't use my data, and that's just fine.
All right, thank you. We have 1 minute left. And I think we don't have time to get to all of these questions, but we can certainly share the chat. Also, if any of you are interested in connecting with any of these authors, contact me, and I can ask about connecting you with them to further your conversations too. Just wanted to share a couple things here. There's the special issue again. It is free and open access to anyone, so feel free to share this information with any of your colleagues. We want this information to get out there. That was one of the things the guest editors and the Ed Board felt very strongly about, that this is important, and we want this conversation to be well publicized. We're also always looking for manuscripts, submissions on anything dealing with college teaching. So think of the journal as an outlet for your scholarship. And we're also always looking for qualified reviewers, and this is a great way to learn about the process, especially if you're new to it, but also if you're experienced. And we have some longtime reviewers here, and we're very grateful to the work they do to support this scholarship. And again, you're welcome to contact the guest editors. I'm also going to put some of these links in the chat so that you'll have that information. And also, we have here at Miami of Ohio, here in Oxford, we have the Lilly Conference on College Teaching every November. So I invite you to think about that. As many journal authors got their start by presenting at the Lilly Conference. So please do think about that. The proposals will be due in June. And I think that's all I have. And I know we're at or a little over time. So I want to thank everyone for all their great work, all our presenters, our authors, our reviewers, and our attendees. And we will be sending out the link for the YouTube recording. So watch for that. Everyone who's registered will get a copy of that. And I respect everyone's time, so thank you so much. Have a great day. Hope to hear from you.
Thanks,
Thank
Craig.
you.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye-bye.
Take care.